How to avoid a Mr. H false godding. Okay, so this is very free thought. And one of the things that I realized in a lot of my past relationships is that I made everybody that I have ever loved more important than me. I just had, I feel like one of my kind of angers towards my dad and his abuse was this embedded concept he put in me that how I participate in other people's lives is how I'm valuable. Like, I don't have my own life, I only have his. And it was horrible and it was devastating because my father, he wasn't a good human being, and he was a horrible human being to me. So I felt very endangered by this concept of I'm nothing beyond what he makes me. And it's something that I've carried in terms of bosses, friendships, lovers, this kind of concept of I'm only as good as how others think I'm good or how others think I'm being good to them, which is why it's always been so devastating when somebody says you're not that nice or you're not that kind. Or when I tell somebody what I need from them and they say no, but I still choose to serve them. Or one of the most perplexing things is just people who have faded me out of their life, like Andrew and Worms. And um, particularly, I think Andrew and Worms, please listen to the episode, is such a good example of that because it wasn't the longest relationship. It wasn't the most impactful relationship. And he wasn't a personality. He was just okay. Another history will not remember him kind of figure. Now that we don't know if it's going to remember me yet, but one of those people like they really came to this earth to become a house husband, as Josie said, a Dobby, and kind of like die, you know? And it was, I think my arrogance and my ego was here was this person who was just okay saying that I wasn't good enough. And I think as somebody who's trying to heal, it's okay to say that people are okay, that they're not exceptional, because they're never my tendency is to make people extraordinary so that I could then handle all the unextraordinary bits of them. Like I have to make this guy the funniest guy in the world to cover up the fact that he's kind of mean. I have to make him the smartest man in the world to cover up the fact that he's kind of like an idiot with some really extreme views. I have to, it's kind of like when somebody says, "Oh, they're just blunt," but it's actually they're mean and they have no care in their tongue for other people's feelings. And that was something that, it's so funny because what I think about when I think of my father, aka my abuser, what's so interesting is how everybody kind of moved their boundaries, moved their limits, and moved their lines to justify his behaviors as if he was that important. And I am of the firm belief that there's just no way we loved ourselves and allowed him to disrespect us. There's no way that we were the brightest bulbs in the universe and allowed him to scam us. There's just no way. And I was talking to my friend, like he had multiple everything, houses, properties, accounts, everything, everything, everything. Women, multiple, and was always crying broke. And it was almost as if we had to pretend to be stupid just to get his presence. And he really thought we were. But I think that was why he totally was a mess and not seeing his actual responsibility to people like me, his daughter. Like, I just wanted a father. And if I had to pretend I was stupid to get a dad, I would, because that's what a child would do. If I had to pretend that him yelling at me with just him talking loud. But yet he was obsessed with me having a quiet voice. And these were the kind of things where it's like he's crying broke, he's taken money from my mom, and yet he's broke, like, but he likes to look rich. We're moving too many pieces here, and we have forgotten the rules of the game. And it's not that he's forgotten, it's that we are. He's the game, and we're acting like it's not being played. And I called it, the episode is called False Godding. And I think that dynamic, it's why I say there's no way I loved myself and loved my dad. And it's one of the reasons why I had to cut him off to cut his abuse. He was too, the more I stayed with him, the more his abuse became bigger and crueler and diabolical and vicious. And he became a literal safety hazard. And in every way, physical, emotional, financial, mental. I never felt safe with my dad. And the problem with him is the better he got financially, the sicker he got mentally. The more he wanted to commit a crime or a plot just to see how somebody would crash. And his two main victims, I mean, I don't know what happened. I mean, I heard how he treated, his other wife's, a wife, his other women, through the grapevine. Uh, but I have to focus on how he treated me and my mom. Um, and I really felt because my mother approached my dad like she was managing grief. I can't believe I gave my daughter a deadbeat dad like the one I had. I can't believe I fell in love with a scammer, a con man. I can't believe. And I think my father confused her desperation to make him manageable because he was the physical embodiment of her grief with love and compassion. Because he wrote all these love letters. Oh, you're the best human being I ever met. You're my best friend. You're so. And I'm like, you didn't give her anything. You'd watch her cry. You'd make her beg for you to pay child support or give me, even show up to my birthday. Like, where were you in this relationship? But again, he's a typical example of something that we say a lot about narcissistic men, which is they love how you treat them. They don't actually love you, they love your service. And she stopped serving him because A, I was older, and B, I think there comes a time in every abuse victim's life where they're just not into it anymore. They're not necessarily healed from your abuse, but they're numbed by it. It's not necessarily that I'm, going to go put on I will survive and find me a good man and love myself. It's just that I don't want to be mistreated by the same person. I'm at a point where I don't even want to be treated. I just want to get through my life. I'm in survival mode. And all the mess you give me is just dead to me. I'm not going to entertain it. I'm not going to comfort it. I'm not going to coddle it. And my dad loved that about me and my mom. He could, oh baby, he could emotionally, my perrito, he could emotionally gut punch us. And my mother would be like, what can we do? And that, oh my God, if Red Bull gives you wings, that comment gave him like T-Rex, what is that? Pterodactyl wings. Okay. And I think my mother and her behavior towards my dad made me false god a lot of relationships in my life, kind of making people, because the minute you make somebody more important than you've turned them into a false god. It's why celebrity culture can be so toxic. We have these people who are like, no, 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 I want privacy, I want privacy, buy my toothpaste. And on the flip side, we're obsessed talking about their private lives, almost to the point of not necessarily building our own or feeling like we could have our own. Like there's no chance there's not a level of exchange. And I think the thing about gossips, my father loved gossiping. And I think there's two things about gossiping. I think you're either extremely bored or extremely criminal. And like and I'm just taking that off of my father's example in the sense of he loved gossip because it either A proved that everybody else was sinful. And even though they weren't as sinful as him, they couldn't throw the stone at the glass house, right? It's like if I compared myself to Hitler, I should be canonized for sainthood tomorrow. I don't even have to die. I'm a saint compared to that guy. Um, and and the flip side of that was boredom and just finding entertainment in other people's choices because you no longer feel you have any choices to make or new choices or new adventures that are even possible to start. And it's why that I'm trying to refrain from gossip. I just don't find it attractive. And I don't like being gossiped about. Like I genuinely do not like being gossiped about. So I'm going to bite the bullet and say if I don't like it, I don't do it. And I'm going to be a grown up and have some self-control. So I just walk away or let people comment and like you're not getting a participation badge from me. And the thing about false godding that makes me so ashamed is I it's that lifting of the veil to see that not only you were in an abusive relationship or a toxic relationship, you were also in a boring one. It wasn't that special. It wasn't Romeo and Juliet. It wasn't this wonderful roller coaster. And albeit nothing can be that bad, like there were moments of good, but my father was a perfect example of the moments of good were to lead to a moment of disappointment. Like he liked to lift me to crush me harder, like he did with, promising to pray my school and then doing, the weird plot he had against me in terms of getting me into student loans and stuff. He was, everything was so calculated. And I made that my God and now wonder why my heart shattered, why my heart got broken, why I chose people that broke my heart, that were always going to break my heart. And it sucks. It sucks. It sucks. It sucks because they were never worth you. He was not worth the price, which was myself. Getting to know me, getting to be me, getting to love me. He is a wound I have to heal from. And he wasn't even worth love, worth loving. You can't destroy, disrespect, disillusion, disappoint other human beings on purpose and be worthy of their love. And that's why I say I really am my father's loss because I was his dream and he didn't realize it. My father wanted love and wanted to be loved by someone that could see him entirely, see him clearly. I know every sin. I saw every crime my dad committed. And I really wanted a dad so badly that I was like, I'll love you. You don't want to give me anything? Cool. I will love you. I was what he deemed safe, the ability to just exist with somebody despite all your malice and have them love you. And he said no. And now I know why God kicked Lucifer out. Because it's true. It is this kind of, you can't be me. That's the thing about narcissistic relationships with empaths. My mother is very empathetic. I am too. And it's this kind of, they are as attracted by how unwavering and unlimited our compassion and love can be as we are as attracted and shocked by how unwavering and unlimited their malice can be. And we kind of push each other's boundaries because they want to know how much our goodness extends. And we want to know in some ways, or just can't believe how much their badness extends. Because that was a thing about my mom that was so difficult in managing my father and one of his next cons, one of his next plots. It was this consistent shock. He would never. Oh, he wouldn't. No. And then he did. And then it was about picking up the pieces of another earth shattering crime, sin, crime he did against us. And the good thing about being an empath is that you will get destroyed, but you will also be reborn, compared to a narcissist that lives in destruction. Part of their jealousy and their eagerness to abuse you is because they live in depression. That's why they think that there's no way you can outdo their sadness. I have told people consistently there's nobody as anxious as Donald Trump. You don't commit that much harm unless you're scared to be harmed. My father loved to terrify people into submission, into silence, which is why he threatened my mom. But he was also terrified. He was scared. He was frightened of not being loved if he showed his authentic self, frightened of being left even though he abandoned, frightened of being hurt when that's all he did, frightened of falling into a lie or trap when that's all he did. And that's why I am finding relief in understanding my father's mental illnesses because he couldn't be better. Like he just couldn't be better. He could only look better. And that's why once you discovered he wouldn't be better, he either traded you, changed you, found another victim, found another favorite slash victim. And I say that because my father liked you according to how you believed his lies. And I said that about Jesse in Japan, that kind of energy of, he was mesmerized by these tourists that he said he went to Japan. And they were like, oh, you went to, and my dad watches the traveling channel. So he knew all about Japan and he was very charming, very, I mean, you don't become a lawyer because you don't know how to talk. You don't become a con man because your words aren't smooth. And the light that he had at making people believe he was somewhere he wasn't, it was a rush, and that's an addiction. I really do feel in perspective my father was addicted to abusing me. And when I tried to reconcile with him and I saw he started committing the same patterns, the same behaviors, the same abuse, I I felt humbled because I think I underestimated my dad's evil because I will never understand it. I will never understand how you can abuse a child. I will never understand how you can, despite all your sins and crimes, you can genuinely think you're a victim and genuinely villainize the people you victimized. I don't understand that. And because I didn't understand it, I think, like my mom, we underestimated it. It's kind of like I don't understand how somebody who took money from my mom would make her beg and cry to get a dollar. That guy who cried in her kitchen, please, my kids, they don't have any lights, they don't have any water, could you help me? Refused to help her with her own lights, with her own water. That guy. And I think my mother, my mother is so funny because she will confront you at a Dunkin' Donuts line if you cut her. But she wouldn't confront my dad who like cut her figuratively. And that's the thing about false godding. You do these, it's almost like you're offering plates of fruit to this giant entity while ignoring that you're starving. Because it's something that happens across religions. It's this idea of let me give the little I have to a God that is everything in hopes he gives me more than the little I have. And then the constant resentment that he didn't serve. Well, maybe I didn't serve enough. Maybe I didn't serve properly. And it's this fear of being alone. It's this fear that all the suffering doesn't mean anything. Or as I arrogantly sometimes feel like I'm just growing. like I'm just this spiritual person that by chance got a body and is growing way more internally than she is externally. And it's why I say sometimes I feel like I should have just stayed in heaven. Why am I here? I live up there. And it's hard. It's hard to ground yourself with that level of energy. And it's hard to ground yourself because just because you get better doesn't mean you're going to get better people, at least not initially. Some people do, some people don't. It depends on your journey. Some people, I love Sister Wives, and I was watching, and one of the people, Christine, divorced her husband and in a month found a new one. The other wife that left Cody, um, they basically have been separated for like 15 years, just divorced. And she's been, the last episode I saw, she had been grieving for 6 months. And she's like, I need to take it slow, despite that technically they've been separated for 15. I don't know time. I don't understand time. But what I do understand is nobody is above me. Some people are beneath me. I think my dad is beneath me, way beneath me morally, at the very least. And eventually will be materially, because I do feel that life will reward me. I do feel that karma is always paid eventually. What I have realized is, and that means goes for good karma and bad karma. What I have realized is it is false to think that life will hand over, that it's only up to life to hand over justice to the people that hand you their injustice. I think it's both. I think that life needs you to make justice. I think that life will handle them in one way, but you need to handle them too. And I think that's the thing about false godding. And if you actually look at the history of gods, I don't want to be praying to any of them. You know, like you look at Zeus sleeping around and everything, mistreating Hera, making her look crazy for catching him and doing what exactly he was doing, treating, lying, stealing. Like that. You're like, damn, that's God? But that's the thing about false godding. It makes you taking back your power, owning yourself can be really scary. Even for my dad, I think how evil he was very scary to him. I think how malicious and how enjoyable his malice was. I think that's why we were perfect abuse victims for him, because he would smile at making me cry. But then I would call him the next day and say, I had fun. There's something relieving to abusing somebody who's going to not only stay there but lie to you and say you're a good person, and you'll just ignore that they're doing that so they could feel a little bit safer. Because that was the thing about my dad, we had to tell him he was good so he wouldn't get worse. We had to act. Oh yeah, no, I'm stupid, bitch. What? You're right. You're right. I can be a stupid bitch. Like I'm 9 and like, yeah, you know? And he's saying that. It's like, what? What? Don't make anyone. People will be beneath you. There are people who are trash. Hashtag daddy recovery. But nobody is above you. And either way, your focus needs to be on who's with you, because they're not a god and they're not a savage. They're your community. Find your community. Not everybody has to be your cup of tea, but they have to respect the tea you like. Yeah, they do have to respect that. Ooh, and I wasn't respected, I'll tell you that. Good luck out there. And you don't have to hate your enemies. You don't have to hate your abusers. I don't. You could get angry, especially as you unpack, you have every right. But make sure you're just healing, because it sucks that they abused us. It sucks that they wounded us and that they were so unworthy of love. But the fact that I realize how unworthy my father is of love, was of love, totally reveals how worthy I am. You know? And that's what healing is. I have to say and accept my father was evil towards me so that I can accept and see how good I've always been and get my good people. So check out daddyrecovery.com, check out d'angelabuseit all.com, check out Jardín Music. Love ya.